My name is Harry, and I'm from London.
Meghan Markle here.
Today is June 16, 2024. It is 4:19 a.m. This is video number 2. This video I was not going to do as number 2, but I came across this tweet that has to do with Will Lewis, and I wanted to read the article, so I want to share it with you. Hopefully I have some thoughts or whatever. Whether I will be sharing it with you, I do not know if I'm gonna upload it. But I was supposed to do this tweet for PYTE, but I'm gonna hold it out for a few. Let me just go to the tweets regarding the New York Times article. Okay, so this is the background. Nothing changed from video 1. Okay, 2,333 views in the last 48 hours. Maybe the views might change slightly, I don't know. But let's go on Twitter. This is the tweet here. See, I just saw it and then I responded to it. There's that here. This is Brian Capecourt, one of the, I believe you, okay, let me just read his bio. Journalist, author, him, ex-professor of journalism, Kensington University, and ex-director, hacked off, write mainly about untrusted UK national press. Okay, so he was a professor, so that's his background. I follow him. So he retweeted this article from New York Times regarding Will Lewis. So there's my comment here 5 minutes ago. They are trying to turn the US papers like the UK trash. Not you at Byline Times, okay? I told Byline, you're not part of that. Okay, I have to thank Prince Harry for continuing pursuing justice. If they had left his wife alone, their scheme to ruin the US papers will have gone unnoticed. We will continue to pray for justice and Prince Harry. Okay, 2 people liked it. Literally 5 minutes ago, I just did that. So I have the link open, so let's go to it. I'm not sure if I'm gonna read it all, but once I get enough information, the link will be in the description if you guys want to read it. Okay. Washington Post publisher and incoming editor are said to have used stolen records in Britain. Years before becoming the Post publisher, Will Lewis assigned an article based on stolen phone records, a former reporter said. Okay, Will Lewis was maintained that's the caption for this. Will Lewis has maintained that his only involvement in the 2000 hacking scandal was his effort to help root out problematic behavior after the fact. Reporting from London, June 15, 2024, by Justin Sheck and Joe Becker. The publisher and incoming editor of the Washington Post used fraudulently obtained phone and company record and newspaper articles as journalists in London, according to a former colleague. The published account of a private investigator and an analysis of newspaper archive. As I'm reading this, even if it's the first paragraph, is that as the phone hacking lawsuit will be going on, I believe in January of 2025, and I think the US will be paying. Social media are trying to do with people, especially YouTube. Yes, YouTube, I'm calling you out on that. Especially YouTube. They want to discourage people for saying what is right, and then for you to leave your ethics behind and then focus on saying stupidity. That way you'll get more traction for your, whatever it is that you're putting out. As long you feel comfortable with it and you believe from what I've, it's the truth. But let's continue. A second article in 2002 carried Mr. Winnett byline, and a private investigator who worked for the Sunday Times later publicly acknowledged using deception to lend the material. So this is really damaging Lewis because he's saying one thing, but people who have worked with him saying the other. All right, so you have this person, a witness, who's coming out and said, no, it was under you. I did this. You made me do that, based on deception. Okay, where they get the information. Both articles were produced during a period when the newspaper has acknowledged paying the private detective explicitly to obtain material surreptitiously that will violate the ethic codes of the Post and most American news organizations. This is the thing here. The Sunday Times has said repeatedly that it has never paid anyone to act illegally. But you have this in your past. What makes you think you're not going to do it over here? Okay, a New York Times review, Mr. Lewis' career also raised new questions about his decision in 2009 as editor of the Daily Telegraph in Britain to pay more than £100,000 for information from a source. Paying for information is prohibited in most American newsrooms. There's the thing here. When Harry and Meghan were doing their interview with Oprah, okay, these people, they were shocked. This gold mine of information was for free. Okay, they were willing to sit down and tell their side of the story. They didn't pay anybody, and they were shocked. Okay, let's continue. In a meeting post journalists in November, Mr. Lewis defended the payment, saying that the money had been put into an escrow account to protect a source. But the consultant who broke the deal said in a recent interview that there had been no escrow account and that he had doled out the money to sources himself. A Washington Post spokeswoman said that Mr. Lewis declined to answer a list of questions. The paper has previously said, quote, William is very clear about the line that should not be crossed, and his track record attests to that. In a series of discussions with Post journalists this week, Mr. Lewis has said that as publisher, his role is to create an environment where great journalism can flourish and that he will never interfere. What is it? In one of the papers that I read, it's in one of my videos, where they try to, how will I say it, rebrand, restructure, that's the word, restructure Washington Post. They're going to create different form of information things. There's entertainment.
I find it hard to see who is the winner here. I mean, Prince Harry goading the press is only, and forcing the press into humiliating payouts is not going to be particularly good for the Sussexes, and it's certainly not great for the press, which is on the hook. I think the total payouts for phone hacking and other illegal information gathering is up to $1 billion, and there are many more cases to try. So my point about all this is, I think we only have losers here, and it's in all our interests that we have a strong, vigorous and honest press. And if it was strong, vigorous and honest, I agree that the press would have reported more on the judgment, the Prince Harry judgment that came through on Friday, than it did. It was basically a broadcast story, far more than it was a print story. And of course, the print and broadcast are in competition, so you can sort of understand that. So my question is, who wins out of this? Has Prince Harry done the press lasting damage? Do you think that as a result of the judgment that went against Mirror Group newspapers, we're going to see some sort of state regulation of the press? I genuinely hope not. I don't want the press to be in the last chance saloon at all. I want to see newspapers thrive. This is my industry, and I think it's in all our interests that we have a thrive. And we've got the most wonderful newspapers in the world in this country. You read the newspapers in the States or in France, they're very dull. They're not entertaining at all.
Restructure Washington Post. They're going to create different form of information things. There's entertainment.
In the States or in France, they're very dull. They're not entertaining at all. I think that we can have both a serious and an entertaining press. And that's what I want to see survive. I don't want to see Prince Harry destroy the industry I love.
There's things about, opinion piece and all that. This is where they're going to get people, okay, throwing, opinion pieces so they could sabotage people's lives, so they could get away with it. in the US. Okay, Mr. Wynette did not answer phone calls or respond to questions sent by WhatsApp and email. The post referred question to his spokeswoman, who did not respond. Okay, so that's different. Mr. Lewis praised Mr. Wynette this month in a meeting with Post journalists. Quote, he's a brilliant investigative journalist, Mr. Lewis said, and he will restore an even greater degree of investigative rigor to our organization. Nah, he needs to go. No one from the UK, especially from those who work for these papers, should ever be in anywhere in the newsroom with the US. And the US, because we already have some tests with some of them already. What was it? Piers Morgan came. Wasn't he in CNN? Okay, I remember when I first watched one, I believe it was only one of his things that I saw. The nonsense that he was spewing, not knowing his background in the UK at all. Okay, that's when I had cable. I was watching CNN, different news, whatever, plenty of channels, but nothing meaningful to watch. But I stumbled on one of his Piers Morgan when he was on CNN, one of his segment, and I was listening to it, and I was like, what the hell is this guy talking about? And I started questioning it, and I had to turn the channel. And then another time, I think I saw him again, and I quickly changed it. These people are pure vile. And then you got...
The following video was filmed on the 5th of March 2021, 2 days before Harry and Meghan's interview was seen by anyone.
Harry and Meghan's interview with Oprah, which is obviously coming out in a few days' time.
My name is Victoria Arbiter, A-R, B as in boy, I-T-E-R, and I am royal commentator for CNN. But at the same time, I think she did ask those questions in a sympathetic light.
They are full of it. And Meghan had to survive it.
These people are pure vile. And then you got the other one, what's his name, who did the interview with Michael Jackson, where who also did the interview with Princess Diana. When I first came across him, it's through Michael Jackson interview. And I remember very well, he's going around, what's the property of Michael Jackson? How do they call it? Neverland or something like that? Very well, speaking in front with Michael Jackson, no issues. You will not think, because he's asking question while he's talking with Michael Jackson is responding. It was fair question. Honestly, there was nothing wrong with that. But what really got me with him is when he got in the studio where he was, talking about the interview, and he said something like, I don't even remember the word that he said, and it really hit me. And I was like, what the hell? You were with him. He showed you over. Why didn't you tell him that on his face when you were with him? But in the studio, completely backstabbed Michael Jackson. I was like, what the hell? I could never stand him ever since. But I had already despised his type of journalism at that moment. The very first time he did in the US with Michael Jackson, I despised him because of what he said in the studio. Not what he said with Michael Jackson or anything. I thought it was very innocent. He's doing his job, asking very critical questions. But in the studio, to turn around and say something completely different, I was pissed. I was pissed about that. And I'll never forget it. I don't even remember what he said, but I remember I was really upset about the way he turned around and talked about Michael Jackson when he wasn't one-on-one with him. He didn't ask him that. But anyway, that's a different story. Let's get back to this. So in other words, the people who work for in the UK, majority of them are trash. Not Omid, because Omid is one of very few, because within the barrage of negativity where many of these people were making money, he chose ethic. He chose ethics, and they despise him for that. For the royal rights, only Omid Scobie, because he stood up for truth, and he just stood up for the message that he wants to share with you based on his perspective, but they hate him for that. The UK is very, very, very trashy, evil. Okay, and very few here and there, like the person who tweeted Brian Cape Cod and some, because he writes for Byline sometimes, and other Byline newspaper journalists. They are very few, but the rest, forget them. All right, let's get back to this. Together, Mr. Lewis and Mr. Wennett will lead one of the most important news organizations in the United States, one that has a deep history of providing independent checks on government and holding the powerful accountable amid, okay, they're waiting. The thing is that they're getting ready for Trump. They're getting ready for Trump so they could turn a blind eye. Okay, you see how very popular Trump is in the UK among those group. Alright, so they're preparing for Trump. God is good. Okay, we're in June, but God is good. We have a long battle come this November. Amid newsroom upheaval and the run up to our election, you see, look at this. There's the thing here. Journalists inside and outside the post have asked whether the new leaders share the ethical foundation. That's the thing. I didn't even see this sentence here. The election. That's what they're trying to do. They're setting the foundation for Trump type of government. So they could turn a blind eye and then spread stupidity that has nothing to do with real news to this, change people's perspective into something else. The same nonsense that's going on in the UK. That's what they want to do over here. Okay, Mr. Lewis was publisher of the Wall Street Journal. And it's no longer the same anymore. I occasionally, not all the time, before the internet stuff, I used to buy the Wall Street Journal. Why? Because they talk about the stock exchange. Occasionally when I want to buy a stock, and I will buy the newspaper to look, the history. That was before the internet. The history of that particular company that I have interest in. I'm not a really strong investor, but occasionally, once in a while, something popped up in my mind and I want to do my research. I used to buy the Wall Street Journal. It's not the same anymore. They like a freaking gossip kind of thing. Let's see what they say here. Mr. Lewis was publisher of the Wall Street Journal from 2014 to 2020. During his tenure, the paper maintained its reputation for high journalistic standard and won Pulitzer Prizes, including for revealing hush money payment by Donald Trump, before the 2016 election. Turmoil at the Post. It's not the same anymore. Turmoil at the Post, though, has brought new scrutiny to Mr. Lewis' early career, particularly at the Sunday Times. It has been well documented that reporters at that reputable broadsheet newspaper rely on fraudulent obtained material for articles up through the early 2000s. But the scandal that followed that period mainly centered on tabloid journalists, so Mr. Lewis and Mr. Wennett remain on the periphery of the controversy. Subterfuge at Sunday Time. In 2002, Mr. Wennett landed a scoop. Mercedes was re-releasing the Maybach, a German luxury car that was popular in the 1930s and that the Sunday Times called the Nazis' favorite limousine. Prominent British figures were lining up to place orders. Mr. Wennett had a list of names, including a member of the House of Lords, a major political donor, and an insurance industry leader. Very interesting. The article did not say how Mr. Wennett had obtained the names, only that the people in question were understood to have placed orders. Very interesting. Many years later, a private investigator named John Ford publicly revealed his long career working for the Sunday Times. He said he had rifled through people's garbage and surreptitiously gained access to the bank, phone, and company records of British politicians and other public figures. Very doubtedly. Because around that time, there was shredders. People like that will not just throw their trash like that without shredding their papers. Okay? I have a shredder since, I don't know, it's still working. I have it for a very long time. Let's look at when shredders first came about. Okay, so there's me here. The beginning, my question is, when shredders first sold to the public, the beginning to the present. The invention never went very far and was never marketed. The first marketing of an electric paper shredding machine started in Germany in 1950s. Adolf Hanger sold the devices to government during the Cold War. The company still sells shredders to this day. Okay, so since 1930. So you think these people will just store their papers, important papers, without shredding them? very suspicious. Okay, suspicious. Okay, so that's that. Here he again. Okay, I read that. British politician and other public figures. Okay, in 2018 interview with The Guardian, Mr. Ford spoke regretfully about his work for a June 2002 article revealing the Maybach buyers. Mr. Wennett's article is the only one that fits that description. But because the original article is not readily available online, they probably remove it. Okay, it had not been linked publicly to him. The New York Times reviewed the June 9th, 2002 article, and Factiva is subscription news database. In the Guardian interview, Mr. Ford said he had called the Mercedes dealer and in a fake accent claimed to be a German key fab manufacturer who needed to see a list of buyers so he could confirm the spelling of their names. The man on the other end of the line was fired after the article ran, he said. Mr. Ford, who has stopped giving news interviews, declined to comment. Mr. Lewis became business editor in 2002, a few months after the Maybach article ran, and became Mr. Wennett's boss. In 2004, Mr. Lewis pulled another business reporter aside after the regular Tuesday editorial meeting and gave him an assignment. According to the reporter, Mr. Koenig recalled in an interview with the New York Times that Mr. Lewis told him to look into conversation between two businessmen involved in the possible sale of a retail chain. Mr. Koenig said he was giving copies of phone records he believes by Mr. Lewis himself. Quote, my understanding at the time was that they had been hacked. Wow, Mr. Koenig said. Armed with the record, Mr. Koenig said he persuaded one of the businessmen, Stuart Rose, who was then the chief executive of the retailer Marks and Spencer and is now a member of the House of Lords, to give him an interview to explain the calls. My God, these people, wow. In June 2004, articles by Mr. Koenig contained down to the minute detail of Mr. Rose's phone calls. The article did not say where the information had come from. Mr. Koenig said he was almost certain that Mr. Lewis edited the article himself. It would have been highly unusual for any other senior editor to review business article, he said. Mr. Lewis himself wrote a first-person article that says they about Mr. Rose and his role in a possible Marks of Spencer deal. In it, Mr. Lewis described personally getting the tip to look into the deal and referred to the phone calls. Quote, I am told Rose started Friday, May 7, with a call to his public relations advisor, Mr. Lewis wrote. In a separate article also written by Mr. Lewis and published that day, he takes note of the precise timing of another phone call. Day later, Marks and Spencer announced that Mr. Rose's phone call record had been hacked. Wow. Okay, the dark art. The culprit who obtained the phone record in the Marks and Spencer case has never been publicly identified. It was widely reported at the time that someone had contacted the phone company posed as Mr. Rose and sought his record. My goodness. That sort of deception known in Britain as blagging will years later become central to a scandal that engulfed Mr. Murdoch's British media empire and exposed the tactic that reporters at his and other Fleet Street tabloid used to invade the privacy of people they wrote about. My God. Okay, there's this. The word hacking is often used as a shorthand for a variety of tactics, including blagging, that became known as British journalism dark art. The methods are generally illegal, but British law makes an exception for blagging when the information is obtained in the public interest. Sheesh, public interest. But the people that they are interfering with are killing themselves. What in the heck? UK, you got a problem. In the US, this is your warning. Okay, after The Guardian and the The New York Times revealed the extent of such practices at the News of the World in 2010. The controversy forced Mr. Murdoch to shutter the paper and then open another one with the same group of people, just change the name, that's all it was. A lawsuit follows, but they focus almost exclusively on the action of tabloid newspapers. Broadsheets like the Sunday Times remain mostly above the fray, only years later have details spilled into public view. Quote, all senior editors and most reporters at the Sunday Times knew that I obtained illegal phone billing data and bank account transaction almost every week for stories, Mr. Ford said in a 2018 interview with the British news site Byline Investigate. Okay, so this is why I said they are the exception. For now, I don't know. If they sell that newspaper and then, you know, it's most likely will not be standing with the same ethical kind of thing. Okay, but let's continue. In the interview, Mr. Ford said he was paid up to £40,000 a year, about £72,000 at the time. Jone Withrow, then the newspaper's staff editor, who was Mr. Lewis' boss, acknowledged that the paper had hired Mr. Ford as a blagger for various investigations. Yeah, that's the same thing they want to do with the Washington Post, because the restructure that they want to do with different sections, different type of headlines kind of thing, they need to restructure the paper and then turn it into this. Let's continue. He was employed because of his skill for impersonation. Is that right? Mr. Withrow was asked during a 2012 government inquiry. Sounds like it, the editor replied. In a later article, Mr. Ford himself wrote that he had considered Mr. Rennet a close friend after Mr. Ford was arrested in 2010 on a blagging-related fraud charge. He said in the article, the Sunday Times paid his legal fees. Mr. Rennet was intimately involved with the arrangement of my legal defense, end quote, Mr. Ford wrote. Mr. Ford ultimately received a formal warning, but not a conviction in the case. Paying for information. Mr. Lewis has said little over the years about the phone hacking scandal. When he has discussed it, he has presented himself as someone who cooperates with the authorities and help news cooperation without wrongdoing. If my memory serves me well, when they were doing the investigation, I believe for one of Murdoch's papers, I don't remember the name of it, and the police, I mean, you know, you could, the move that they did, you could see that the police was part of it. The information, what's the term for information that they could use? I can't think of it. When I'm editing, hopefully, just look at the screen. Okay, not witness, the evidence, that's the word. The evidence that they find. Okay, piles, cabinet of stuff, of evidence. They let him to watch it. It's almost like having the facts guard the chicken. Okay, a good portion were missing afterward. So what happened to that? Okay, so all the ones that could, they give him time, in my humble opinion, to go through the papers, see things that they could remove. Okay, so they don't have as evidence. But these people, oh my God. But anyway, that's a different story, and that was from one of those papers that I read. Let's continue. Okay, how many more do I have? Am I almost done? Almost done. Okay, quote, my role was to put things right, and that is what I did, he told the BBC in 2020. The hacking scandal has roared back into Mr. Lewis' life recently as he works to reorganize, that's the thing here, reorganize the Post newsroom. His executive editor, Sally Busby, quit over that plan. There's the thing here. Okay, I remember reading this part from someplace else. There's the link to it, but I'm not gonna read it. Days later, the New York Times revealed that Mr. Lewis had scolded her for covering the developments in a British phone hacking lawsuit that named him. Mr. Lewis has denied pressuring Miss Busby. And this is where all of this is coming out. They wanted to write about it, and he's putting pressure on people to not write about it. So now, this is why we have this article. Because he refused for people, he didn't want people to write about it. Okay. Then an NPR reporter revealed that Mr. Lewis had offered an exclusive interview if he promised not to write about the phone hacking case. There's that as well, and I believe I read. I'm gonna click on this just to get the links for you guys. If you wanna read, oh shit, it goes back. Yeah, forget it. Oh fuck, I missed where I was. What I'll do, I'll go back and grab the links for you, and then I'll put the link in the description for you guys. Okay, so I was somewhere here. Then an NPR reporter revealed that Mr. Lewis had offered an exclusive interview if he promised not to write about the phone hacking case. Mr. Lewis has also faced questions about another scoop that he and Mr. Winnett delivered in ways that would not have been considered ethical in most American newsrooms. I'll get the link for you if you guys want to read it. It seems like you have to pay for some of these articles because I saw the thing on that link when I clicked on it. In 2009, Mr. Lewis was editor of the Daily Telegraph. Mr. Winnett revealed that politicians had used government expense accounts to spend lavishly. The article ignited a major political scandal. The article was based on record that the Telegraph had bought from a security consultant for more than £120,000. My God. Meanwhile, there's real news that's going on around the world. They're not reporting about it. They're creating their own news. I mean, Harry got them to the T. They are creating their own stupid news.
They don't report the news, they create it. And they've successfully turned fact-based news into opinion-based gossip with devastating consequences for the country. So I know the story all too well.
And look what we're focusing on instead of what's going on in the Middle East, what's going everywhere. And then so many people had died in the Middle East. Journalists. Who's reporting those things, but they lose their lives. But anyway, let's continue. In his meeting with Post journalists in November, Mr. Lewis defended his article. He told the staff that the Telegraph had spent the money to help protect a source. Quote, I agree to put money in escrow accounts for legal protection, Mr. Lewis said, according to the Post. In an interview with the New York Times this past week, the security consultant described a far less formal arrangement. Quote, it was not an escrow account, said the consultant, John Wick. He said that he had collected the money himself on behalf of the source. I held it and I released it when and how I thought it was needed. Mr. Wick said that he had arranged that the deal with Mr. Winnett, £10,000 for a chance to review the information, then another £100,000 for the exclusive right to it. Mr. Wick said he did not tell Mr. Winnett or Mr. Lewis what he did with the money. Alright, so there's that. The link will be in the description. There's a couple links I'm gonna be leaving in the description for you guys if you guys are interested. Okay? So that said, please take a moment to subscribe, like, and share. You see, there's some of them you have to pay for it. So I'm just letting you know in advance. Okay? And there it is here. Please take a moment to subscribe, like, and share. If you want to support this channel, there's a PayPal link. Oh, I just lost a subscriber. Please take a moment to subscribe, like, and share. If you want to support this channel, there's a PayPal link and a Cash App link in the description. You could donate. Those who have donated, thank you. And I have my shop. You could check to see if you like any of the merch that I have there. Okay.
It is a great privilege to be with all of you today.
we ask for forgiveness and please come back.
As you saw me find the love and happiness that I'd hoped for all my life. You are all in this together, and if I may speak personally, we are all in this together, because asking for help was one of the best decisions that I ever made. You will be continually amazed how life changes for the better.